Hello everybody, my name is Simon, or Shoocharu, or Shoocharu, however the heck you pronounce that, and I come to you today to give a little insight about how I actually make these Legend of Avantris shorts. You see, every single time I leave my private home in Little Denmark, I am bombarded, accosted by Avantris fans, and they just demand to know, how in the world do I make them? And well, I'm about to tell you, so stick around for that. So, allow me to take you back to the very beginning of my process. See, the very first thing that happens is I wake up screaming. Okay, maybe we could just skip past that bit. So the next thing that happens is I actually receive a massive email from Mikey. You know who that is. Just like a big email where he sends like 50, 100 live action shorts, and he writes a little description beneath each of them, you know, gives me the context because I don't know anything about D&D, to be completely honest with you. A lot of times I have no idea what they're talking about, which I think sort of adds to the humor, I hope, maybe. And, you know, sometimes I just go through them, you know, chronologically in order, and sometimes I pick one out of random, and that's what happened today. So the short I am going to be working on today is, drumroll please, this one.
I'm thirsty.
I'm gonna step through the bars, go get a drink, and then come back inside through the bars.
Bitsy has scooped up some filthy toilet wine.
And it's not through the bars at all.
No.
It's called sangria.
That's foul. What? Where did you find this? This is.
I found it in the cell over there.
It's red, but there's definitely some scrubbing bubbles, and lemon pledge, and other unmentionables.
There's a little blue puck in mine.
All right, what a gas. Okay, so how in the world do I change that into an animation? What do I decide to leave in, leave out? How do I decide what the characters look like when they say the funny things, and all the little gags that go along with that? Let's find out. So as you can see here, I have recorded my animation software, and the first thing that happens is I import the audio from the short into the timeline. The software, by the way, is Adobe Flash CS5, which is an old version of Adobe Animate, which is like the current one. But I've used this version for, you know, over a decade now, so I know, you know, the ins and outs and all the weaknesses and all the greatnesses. The whole idea behind this project is speed and efficiency. Having to make 2 of these a week, I sort of need to be able to make them quick. So by making them in a software I am well familiar with, really helps. The next thing I do is I simply listen through the audio a couple of times and see on the timeline how long each beat of the audio actually is. And then what I do is I go through, as you can see here, and I sort of mark down the cuts between each shots. And I just like to do this because I like to see how long each shot actually is and how many shots there are for me to work on. Usually I would like there to be fewer shots rather than a lot of quick ones. You know, you'll see that sometimes in the previous ones where if we have the camera on a character and then another character says something, rather than having an entirely new shot where you focus on the new character, I'll just have that character pop in from the side, which I also think adds a fun visual to the whole thing, just having this character pop in from the side like that. So the next bit is I just start animating, and if you are an animator yourself or a visual artist, or you just have an idea of how this works, you might be screaming at me right now and punching your knee because, hey Simon, where are the storyboards? Where's the sketches, man? And I might come off sounding a bit insane for this, but I don't do storyboards, at least not for these little shorts here. Obviously with my big music videos I do a lot of storyboards, of course. I think actually for the first Avantris short I did a year ago, I actually made a storyboard, which you can see here. That was just sort of like a proof of concept, so I could actually show Mikey the ideas I had. If I made a full thing and he didn't like it at all, that would have been a waste of time. But now, obviously, I know what he wants and he knows what I'm capable of, so I just go right ahead and just animate just like that. Occasionally, he'll have a note or something that needs to be changed, which I will then, of course, just do that in a jiffy. That could be anything from what the character is wearing, or the location, or, you know, a joke that might be too crude for YouTube. A lot of those. The most extreme one that I remember off the top of my head was actually in this Witchlight short, where they were referencing Greco's teenage daughter, and I didn't recall ever seeing a design for his teenage daughter, so I just made up one. And then Mikey let me know afterwards that no, his teenage daughter is actually the big owl bear. So obviously I should have put 2 and 2 together and just figured that out of my own. I'm sorry, I didn't know that. How was I supposed to know? Now here is the bit where I do the quote-unquote lip sync. As you can see here, it's literally just making these two poses, the one with the mouth closed and the one with the mouth open. And then I just sort of go back and forth and time that to the audio, which you can see finished here.
I'm thirsty.
I'm gonna step through the.
I'm thirsty.
I'm gonna step.
I'm thirsty.
I'm gonna step.
Oh, and by the way, I have to listen to this audio over and over and over again. A lot. So the next thing you can see here is I make a very quick background just to sort of have that set for the rest of the short so I know what's actually going on. You'll see usually I have very like simple, abstract, colorful backgrounds for the shorts where the location isn't really important or implied necessarily. But for these ones where they're in a prison cell and obviously they mention the prison bars and the toilets and all that, it's rather important for me to show the audience where they're actually located. The next thing that happens here is actually something that very, very rarely happens, but I thought it would be interesting to show you anyway. So I'm working on the gag here where Bitsy goes through the bars of the prison. And I thought of, obviously, I think what Derek meant was that she just like sort of squeezes through, which I'm trying to animate here. And you actually see that I end up completely finishing that animation, coloring it and everything. And then as I go through it, you'll see that I'm actually not very happy with it. So again, like I said, this is something that very rarely happens. Usually I have the whole animation sketched out in my head before I start drawing anything. But occasionally I'll see that a thing isn't really working and then I'll change the whole thing. So here I'm instead going for a sort of Terminator 2-esque going through the bars sort of gag, which I think works way better for Bitsy's, how should we say, extreme way of behaving. Another thing you might notice is the fact that I have a little copy of Bitsy up in the corner there, which is just so I can grab the colors very quickly instead of having to go back to the previous shot where she was present. And what you'll see here is I am actually coloring Booker and Pecky from memory. I'll just pick like the greens and the purples and the raccoon colors from memory. What I did in the beginning when I just started drawing these characters is I would have like these character designs out to the side so I could pick the exact same colors every single time, just because I couldn't quite remember what sort of colors they actually had. But obviously the more I draw them, the more accustomed I become to their designs and how they look and what colors they actually have. Plus I think it gives each short its own sort of personality, that each short has its own very, very finely unique sort of color palette, instead of every single one of them just having the exact same colors each and every time. As far as I know, one of the things that people always take away from my cartoons is the faces, of course. Like the face I'm drawing here for Booker spitting out the toilet water. What exactly goes through my head as I draw this? I wish I could like just tell you literally what goes through my head when I draw stuff like this, but I'm honestly not quite sure. Obviously with animation, I listen to the sound that he actually makes as he's spitting, and I try my damnedest to just have that face be like a one-to-one relation with the sound. So when you hear the sound and you see the face, it just clicks immediately in your head. I guess if I had to go in and give sort of tips to other artists, I will say try and just stretch the proportions of the face as much as you possibly can until it just doesn't work anymore. Because even when it doesn't work, it can still sort of come across as a face. I think in animation it's easier because you have that sort of transition from the normal face to the crazy face, which obviously helps with the understanding of what the face actually is. So here I have, you know, two sort of normal faces and then the crazy face in between the normal faces. So it's easier to comprehend that way. Speaking of faces, obviously we have the crazy ghost story Bitsy face here, which I don't know, I don't really know what to say. I think I obviously like making really gross, detailed, weird faces, and a character like Bitsy, I mean, you gotta do that. I mean, she's such a good character to just have morph into these sort of weird, grotesque facial structures like this. I mean, goddamn, look at that. Now here's a rarity. Usually Peggy is sort of more composed and cool in my shorts. But here I have a rare moment of making her freak out because, of course, the voice is matching that. So it's always fun when the sort of more calm and collected characters like Frosty and those sort of freak out every now and then. Another thing I might mention, though this might only make total sense to other animators, when you have a freak out like this where she's completely, like she's practically screaming, it can actually add to the humor if you have less frames of animation. Like here I just have the scream open mouth and the closed mouth and nothing really in between. Obviously more in between frames would make it a smoother and arguably a more pretty animation, but the lack of frames and the snappiness of the movement just adds to the humor, which in this case to me is more important. And right now it looks like we're coming into a close. I finished off on the last shot, which doesn't always happen, but it's nice when it does. Sort of a satisfying moment to have for me as an animator. Usually with these shorts is I like to sort of, if I can, have them end on like a shocking little quick joke thing. Something that makes the viewer go, huh, what the fuck was that? So they hopefully rewind or they watch the whole thing again or something like that. I like to end on like a little shocking thing, like Bitsy eating a poop puck. That's great. And well, there you have it, kids. Wasn't that a load of fun? I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you maybe learned a thing or two, maybe? If you have any questions of any kind, please feel free to leave them down in the comments, and I'll be sure to not reply to any of them, but I will certainly read some of them. I can guarantee that. Finally, I would just like to say thank you to all of you for watching the many shorts and just for the great joy and support you have given me and the team over the year. Obviously, a huge thanks to Mikey and the rest of the Avantris team for just giving me like 99% creative freedom to just contort and destroy their characters the way I've done. You know, when I look back at the first shorts I did, I'm kind of shocked how detailed the character designs were. And then when you look at the most recent ones, they all just look like blobs. I suspect in like a few years they'll probably just look like this. Which, you know, it'll be a gradual process, but it's gonna look really weird, I think. But yeah, thank you for watching. Have a nice day and sleep tight, everybody. Take it easy.